It's time for Fight News Now Extra. I'm John Pollock, and thanks for tuning in as we take you through all of today's headlines and then welcome in John Ramdeen and Robin Black. The UFC is striking back against Wanderlei Silva. World Series of Fighting is forced to change a fight for this weekend's Vegas card, and Ireland has a main event for October. Joseph Duffy appeared on TV3, a national broadcaster in Ireland, and confirmed that he will be headlining the UFC's return to Dublin this October as Duffy meets Dustin Poirier in the lightweight main event. Duffy has looked impressive in wins over Jake Lindsay and Yvonne George since entering the UFC earlier this year. Poirier has won his last 2 fights since returning to 155 pounds, and you can bet a lot of the promotion will revolve around their common opponent, Conor McGregor. This Saturday's World Series of Fighting 22 card, which airs on Fight Network in Canada, got a late change as Thiago Silva is off the card and Clifford Starks is coming in to take the vacant spot and fight Mike Kyle. The Nevada Athletic Commission is not allowing Silva to fight due to a previous suspension where Silva submitted non-human urine after his win over Brandon Vera in January 2011. Starks made his World Series of Fighting debut this past March, submitting Jake Hune. A lawsuit has been filed by the UFC in Nevada District Court against Wanderlei Silva, citing intentional misconduct. The contents of the complaint have not been made public yet, but one can conclude that this likely has to do with the recent comments made by Silva that he has proof that the UFC has fixed fights in the past, which is a major allegation to be making against a fight promoter. We are back Saturday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time with a UFC 190 pre-fight show. John Ramdeen, Robin Black, and I will be getting you set for all 7 fights on the pay-per-view portion from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, headlined by Ronda Rousey and Bethe Correia for the women's bantamweight title. I'm here with Robin Black and John Ramdeen, and guys, 7.5 weeks until Josh Barnett, Roy Nelson. Lots of fights to discuss, and shortly after that, we've got Joseph Duffy and Dustin Poirier headlining the UFC's return to Dublin. That is going to be a fun build-up. How many times will Conor McGregor's name come up in the promotion of that one? I believe his name will be on the poster.
Yeah, I would
the last man to defeat Conor McGregor against a guy that Conor McGregor beat. That could be it. No even last names. Forget Duffy and Poirier.
You don't even need their pictures.
But the reality is, because of that, Joseph Duffy's in the main event in Dublin. You know, you look at his wins in the UFC, not against the biggest names, but because he has that backstory and they're able to push him, he's now in the main event. How many guys have had 5 or 6 fights in the UFC, had impressive wins, and they're not fighting in the main event? Joseph Duffy, he has a special skill set. He can submit you. Now he's striking, looking good. The story of moving from Ireland to TriStar, and now the last man to defeat Conor McGregor. Everything makes sense.
I think this is a really fun main event. I mean, just to the styles of both guys, and on top of that, Joseph Duffy is going to feel like a superstar in that main event, in that environment. And I think they're now trying, well, let's create more stars in Ireland. It makes no sense to put McGregor on a fight night card in Dublin.
But the question has to be asked, is Joseph Duffy ready for Dustin Poirier? Because he's coming hunting. He is going to try to take this guy out. And, you know, we all look at Joseph Duffy, and I think we realize he's a skilled individual, but Dustin Poirier seems to be on a different level, so...
Yeah, I love the fight, like just as a fight. Personally, I don't care where guys are in whatever rankings and who deserves what thing. That's just not for me, man. I don't care about what the fight's going to look like, and this one's going to look good. And although when explaining why it's these guys, they're like, Poirier, who could Duffy fight? Somebody that our Irish fans know. Oh, this guy. Yeah. There's a guy that Conor McGregor made fun of. Yeah. We can use him. But good opportunity for Dustin Poirier. Super skilled. He's come a long way since that McGregor fight. I think he's very, very confident. But Duffy's really good. And that's the other thing. His boxing is super tight. And he's a ground specialist, you know? So it's a great fight. Dustin Poirier needs to win this fight because he does belong in those huge fights. And this isn't the huge definitive fight of his career. This is one he needs to win and then have some even bigger ones. But it's a tough one.
This Saturday night, it's a busy one. Not just the UFC presenting their pay-per-view, but we've got World Series of Fighting from Las Vegas. In typical World Series of Fighting fashion, they are going head-to-head with a big UFC event, which in the past, I've always been told when I've asked World Series of Fighting, it seems that this is much more an NBC Sports Network directive. And I think World Series of Fighting, if they had their full say, they would probably be avoiding, especially big pay-per-views for the UFC. But we've got Jake Shields and Rousimar Palhares. I think that's a quality main event. You just heard that Thiago Silva is off the the card.
Yeah.
Clifford starts now in to fight Mike Kyle.
Still fun.
It's going to be airing here on Fight Network on Saturday night. Do you think that there is an audience that maybe they feel that this Brazil card, it's Ronda Rousey's fights, I feel they are must-see for most fans. So I think that this is something that people are going to be DVRing and checking out maybe on Sunday. But nonetheless, I think this is a really good main event on Saturday.
Yeah, well, you can consider Ronda Rousey the main event. Some people would say Jake Shields and Paul Harris the main event. The main event for me is Big Nog fighting Stefan Struve, one of the kings of mixed martial arts, fighting in Brazil. His brother on the card taking on Shogun in a rematch from one of the greatest fights in the history of mixed martial arts. And then you have the queen of MMA in Ronda Rousey, that most casual fans, they're tuning in to see this girl. I had one of my aunts, I had a family reunion. She said, oh, we love Ronda Rousey. So she transcends mixed martial arts. But I think for hardcore fans, Minotauro, Big Nog, the guy, takes a beating spectacularly, never gives up, and finds a way to win. It is exactly what MMA is all about.
This guy should have been on the Countdown show. Man,
I'm telling you,
There's rumbling too.
I have my shirt on, my shorts on.
Your Nogueira shorts. It's true. Jorts. There's rumbling that if he wins, it'll be his last fight.
Yeah.
That he will go in, and if he wrote the storybook ending, he would finish this guy, drop him, submit him, get his hand raised, take his gloves off, put him in the middle. Some people would cry. John Ramdeen. Openly
he'd be in the
weeping.
fetal position for a week minimum.
Shaking like Axl Rose in those music videos. And that'll be the end of that. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. People do also, I don't know, probably a lot of people watch multiple things at a time now. That's how our brains work now. So
that's what's happening.
That's what's happening at Ramdeen's house. It's going to be crying.
Because we were talking
Nogueira, and then over here, yay for Jake Shields. It's going to be nonsense.
And the reason why is because you mentioned all these big name fights, and these are athletes that have helped mold the shape of mixed martial arts. And then on top of that, you get Damian Maia and Neil Magny, a fight that not a lot of people are talking about. And we get to see what's going on in the women's 115-pound division. Jessica Aguilar, getting her UFC debut. So this card, it is stellar. Great job by the UFC.
Not to mention the finals, both finals from Tough Brazil.
Yeah.
Not to mention.
Great. Not to mention.
For Robin Black, John Ramdeen, I'm John Pollock. More Fight News Now Extra is up next.